Welcome to the Albuquerque Journal's Fast Break High School Basketball Show with your host, James Yodice. This show is sponsored by Western New Mexico University.
Hi, everyone. I am James Yodice. I am the high school sports editor at the Albuquerque Journal. Welcome to Fast Break, the Journal's high school basketball podcast. As we get into the season, now we're almost a month in already. It's hard to believe. But we are getting ready to segue into January. Metro Tournament will be the second week of January. We've got a lot of holiday tournaments coming up between Christmas and New Year's. And a little bit later, we're going to talk about some of the tournaments that occurred last weekend. In the meantime, I've got a special guest today, and we're glad to have her. If you're talking high school basketball players in New Mexico, the best girls players in New Mexico, there are two names at the top of the list. One of them is Bella Hines from El Dorado. The other is my guest today. That would be Sydney Benally from Sandia High School. Sydney, good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Sydney is a junior at Sandia and having a terrific season. And Sandia ranked number 2 in the coaches poll behind Hobbs. And Hobbs will be up here for the Metro Tournament in several weeks as well. And Hobbs and Sandia played in the Metro Final last year, so we hope these two will run into each other again next month. So, Sydney, first things first, tell us where you're at with school. As we sit down and do this podcast, it is Wednesday afternoon. You're almost done with your semester, yes?
Yes. Today I just got done taking my last final, and it's looking pretty good. I'm in the IB program at Sandia, so it's just like in a way separated from like the public school, and so I'm getting higher academics right now.
I'm a little bit familiar with the IB program. Could you explain it a little bit for us?
Yeah, it stands for International Bachelorette Program and Baccalaureate Program, and it just gives more of like outside thinking into each classes. It could be similarly to AP, but I feel like they're more like hands-on, and the teachers are very, they connect well with their students, so that's why I enjoy it so much.
I always wonder this because I know when we get to the holidays, I always need a break. I've been covering football and soccer and cross country and volleyball and getting ready for basketball, so I'm always ready for a break. Now, basketball season just started, but as a student, how much do you look forward to just taking a couple of weeks away and just kind of clearing your head of everything?
From basketball in school, I feel that basketball is like my safe spot from school, especially in this program. It can be a lot of work, but I know that I have dreams that I'm chasing, and so I know it's helping me in the long run.
Tell me what your plans are for the holidays. Do you have any specific plans with your family?
I have family up north on the Navajo Reservation, so we're planning on just taking some time and going back home and spending family time, going back to our culture.
So your family's from the Navajo Nation, and anybody that watches high school basketball in New Mexico knows how important basketball is to the Native American community. We see this all the time in the pit whenever Gallup shows up or Shiprock shows up or Santa Fe Indian School comes down. They bring down these enormous crowds. You could probably explain this as best as anyone. What is the power between the communities, the Native American communities, whatever community it may be, and basketball? Why is it so powerful, and why is it so strong?
I believe, so I grew up just watching basketball and knowing how much a crowd it brings, especially I'm surprised how much it brings the attention girls bring more than the boys, especially on the Navajo Reservation. I feel that res basketball, it just brings everyone together, and it's very important. It's just overall welcoming to everyone. It seems like everyone can play and give their input, and it's just so fun to watch. And so that's why I took very inspiration from the Shiprock girls basketball and just knowing the crowd they brought. And so that's why one of my main goals was to play in the pit this year, or especially last year.
Yeah. And you're, of course, not young enough to remember this, but I've been doing this job long enough, and I can remember those days when we had the Shiprock-Kirtland Central rivalry, which is still great. But we had a sequence of maybe, I don't know, half a dozen years when they played in the state final just about every year. And the crowds that came down, both from Kirtland and from Shiprock, it just brought the pit alive in a way that you don't get. And you said it very well, I think. The girls' crowds tend to be more active and engaged than the crowds for the boys' games. Not to say they're not interested in the boys, but I always found the girls' crowds are bigger and louder. Do you have a reason for that, do you think?
I feel that girls just bring a different type of basketball. Obviously, it's their threes, defense, and just overall their mentality. And so it's just different from the boys. And so the native crowd, they enjoy it.
So you said you grew up with basketball. What's your earliest memory of basketball?
I remember playing in like I-9 leagues, and then also.
Where was this?
It was here in Albuquerque.
Okay.
I-9, YMCA, Upward basketball, and just surrounding me was just a bunch of boys. And being the only girl, I know I had to be different and at a different level, especially at that age, in order for them to trust me. And so just growing up with basketball, it's really built me into the character I am today.
Where were you born? Were you born here in Albuquerque?
Yes.
Okay. So basketball has been such an ingrained part of your life, and now you're a junior in high school. You're one of the best players, not just in the state, but in the entire region. So I was going through the list. So indulge me for a second. So I was breezing through the list of schools that I believe have offered you scholarships at this point. So everyone, just bear with me for a minute. We're talking, and I'm going to run through this list, and it's extensive. Utah State, Utah Tech, Penn, Northern Arizona, SMU, Wichita State, Stephen F. Austin, UTEP, UT San Antonio, hometown UNM Lobos, South Alabama, Grand Canyon, Colorado State, Louisiana Tech, San Diego State, Rice, Santa Clara, Tulane, Cornell, and Fordham. When you hear that list or when you see that list, does it amaze you just how much interest there is in you joining their programs when you're done at Sandia? Yeah,
definitely. Just the amount of people, coaches that believe in my potential, and it definitely, I'm very blessed for them.
So UNM, I believe, offered you, I want to say roughly about a year ago. I think it was late in 2022 when UNM offered you. I'd be curious, I think people who are watching would be curious, what is your impression of UNM women's basketball, of Coach Bradbury, of the program? They've had some success with local recruits like Jaden De La Cerda from Roswell, Jalen Bates, of course, from Volcano, Natalia Chavez from Volcano are both on the team now. What is your impression of this program and of Coach Bradbury?
Yeah, I know that New Mexico, they bring a crowd. They're very familiar with their New Mexico athletes, so they have a very strong community. Just getting to know Coach Bradbury's and the rest of the coaching staff, just what they bring to the table, and I'm just getting to know them more familiar and just their gameplay.
Do you have it now? Of course, you still have your senior year ahead, so you still have some time before you have to decide on all this. But do you have an idea or a list of criteria in your head about things that whatever school you pick, they're going to have these things for me to consider them?
Yeah. So first off, just high in academics, and then a coaching staff that I can call a second family, and a program I can call a second home, because I'd say distance really doesn't play a factor for me.
Right, because we got schools. I mean, we've got a couple of Ivy League schools on this list, plus a lot of, more regional schools. Is there any one or two schools that have really impressed you so far?
I think I'm impressed by the Ivy League schools. Just basically, you're just set for life academically there. And I'm still taking in consideration like other schools, just getting to know them better, and I want to be able to make the right pick.
Right, because there are some strong academic schools on this list. We're talking about Penn, Rice, Tulane, Cornell, Fordham. There are some really good academic schools. Not to say the others are not, but there are some schools that are more academic heavy, I think, maybe than even basketball heavy. So I wonder about that balance for you between finding a school that has what you want to study and finding that, what you just talked about, that comfort in a program between the coaches, the players, the community, just the vibe of a program when you take a visit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of that all of that goes together, yes?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So let's talk about, as we segue into this Sandia season, Sandia's coming off a victory at the Melotero Invitational in Rio Rancho last week. Sandia beat El Dorado in the championship game, which was a weird game. Sydney and I, before we started our podcast, we were talking about some of the optics of this game, which were a little odd. Of course, it brings together you and Bella Hines. I wonder, could you talk about the rivalry the two of you have, if at all? The schools have a great rivalry. I mean, Sandia and El Dorado are only a mile or two apart. Is there a healthy competitive rivalry with Bella in there as well?
Yeah, between me and Bella, we grew up knowing of each other, and then at some point we were teammates, and so both of us know that the respect goes both ways, and it's always fun just playing against each other, knowing that we did so at such a young age, and we being old teammates and then now competitors, it's a fun rivalry, I would say.
You say you used to be teammates. Can you tell me a little bit about that? When were you the two of you teammates?
I would say 7th and 8th grade, we were teammates in a program based here in New Mexico, and so just playing a lot of games together and getting familiar with each other, growing up with some same trainers, and so we know each other.
Teams come up with some funky ways to defend her. Is she even defendable? She's not defendable one-on-one, so you've got to find a way to limit her touches, I guess maybe that's the best way to say it. How does any team, whether it's Sandia or Rio Rancho or Clovis or Farmington or Volcano or whoever, how do you go about defending a player like that?
I feel like all defense just comes with effort and just your mentality, and so just bringing the best you can, and just knowing the respect goes both ways. Defense is a part of the game, and so you have to be able to put your best foot forward.
So as we think about your Sandia team now, the three central players that came back, that would be you and Hope Giddings, Audrey Wright. The three of you played together as freshmen, then as sophomores. Now you're juniors. When you throw Chloe Brown in there, you got 4 starters back from a team that went, I think, to the quarterfinals last year. So when this season began, I know I thought this, and I think most everybody thought this, Sandia was going to be a team that had a chance to play on the last day of the season. And I'm wondering if this team, your team, from inside the program feels that way as well.
Yes, we have big goals for this team. This group of girls, we have gained so much chemistry and experience. I feel like we've grown deeper. I would like to acknowledge, my sister. She has, obviously, we grew up with each other, and I would say we have, the same gameplay.
We're talking about Kaya.
Yes, Kaya.
Right, okay, who's sitting just to our off camera here. She's an 8th grader who has joined the program this year, and she already has a Division I offer, I think, from
North Texas and New Mexico State.
You're right. Okay, so she has entered the fold as well. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah, so overall, we have big goals. We're deeper as a team, and so we believe we can go really far, and we're just continuing to perfect our skills and through these games knowing our weaknesses and how to improve them.
So, I mean, as we get into February and March, which is still a ways away, but what's going to be the difference for this team? If you want to get into the semifinals or championship game, there are obviously a lot of good teams out there. What will have to happen if you guys want to take that next step?
I feel like the main obstacle between us and our goal is ourselves, and so how to pick ourselves up whenever it's not going in our favor, and knowing how to work with each other even when it gets rough, and just overall knowing it takes a team and to being together.
Yeah, and last Saturday is a good example. El Dorado was up 9 points at half, and they had everything the way they wanted. And you guys were able to kind of turn the tables on them, sharpened up the defense. So I'm wondering how much of a good early lesson that was for everybody. You get down. I know Coach Kettig was frustrated. I was sitting right near your bench. He was frustrated with what was going on. And I suppose as one of the veterans on this team, it had to be nice to see the team regroup at halftime, come out with a new game plan, and make it work.
Yeah, overall, our mentality changed. I believe in the first half we were in some ways being selfish, and we just knew what had to be changed and what was going to work. And so, obviously, going into the game plan is not going to be just like the perfect plan. And so, we changed what we had to, and then we just came out with the win.
And, my observation was you guys didn't shoot the ball all that well in the first half either the other day. Not as well as I think you guys are accustomed to shooting, right?
Right. Yes, the ball's not always not going to be 100%. And so us taking those shots is important, just keeping our confidence. And if they're not falling, we have to change that by getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line. So, yeah.
Right. So, Sandy, I think it's fair to say, Sandy is a team that I don't want to say lives and dies by the three, but let's face it, there are a lot of really good shooters on this team. You guys take more threes than probably most teams. Is that sustainable, do you think, over the course of a whole season, if without a true big in the middle?
The ball falls in or it bounces back out, but just again, confidence. We work on it every day, so coming into the game, we're all coming in confident. We want to shoot the ball. If not falling, then we'll take other, our skills of going one-on-one or attacking the basket. And so we just want to keep our three-pointers at a high because there's also second chances by rebounding or putbacks.
Tell me how it's been with your younger sister on the floor with you so far. You guys have had a few weeks now together. What's your impression of how her game is coming along and how she's sort of integrated with the returning starters on this team?
Yeah, I feel that she's overall grown very mature, and she can. Obviously, everyone can grow even more throughout the season. In practice, we're always competing against each other. She's always the first one to step up against me, and so it's fun. And she keeps me level-headed, of course.
How so?
Just always knowing I can do better. Like if I take a shot, if it's wide open, she was like, "You got to make those because we work on it every day." So she always keeps me in check.
How good is her upside down the road? She's 3 years behind you. What's her upside in this game?
I feel like her overall, it's her determination. She's willing to do the dirty work. She's willing to do anything to win, even if it's not necessarily like what she wants to do or in her skill set. She'll be willing to do it, and I have complete faith in her.
Now, you run a lot of the point for Sandia. Do you look at it as your duty or your role to lead this team, to put it a bit on your shoulders? You're not necessarily the old. I believe Chloe's a senior.
Chloe's a sophomore.
Sophomore, excuse me. So do you look at it as part of your role to put this team on your shoulders, as not just as a player, but as a leader, vocally, emotionally, leading by example?
Yeah, I feel like I do well leading by example, but this year I've been trying to grow more as leading vocally and like through communicating. Being a point guard, you have to be a floor general and not necessarily put the whole team on my back, but just knowing like everything has to like run through me in a way that I keep everyone in place and their best possibilities to succeed.
And I guess I asked this question because people sometimes text me when I'm covering Sandia, "Hey, how is Sydney Benally doing?" And I think it's because people are familiar with your name, they're familiar with your game, and I think people look to you and think, this is someone who's out front of her team, and others follow. And I don't know if that's 100% accurate or not. You can speak to that.
I know that like a lot of people, especially on the reservation, know me and look to me as examples, especially in the pit. I had a lot of supporters out there, and so it was great to see them. Just knowing how many people know me is crazy, and the amount of people that look up to me and support me. All I know is I can give thanks to my Lord and Savior above.
Do you come from a big basketball family? A lot of other family members, either your immediate family or cousins, aunt, uncles, anybody like that. Is it largely a basketball family for you?
I would say yes. We have big fans. All my aunts, they still go to watch the Kirtland versus Shiprock girls
But did
basketball
they play
games.
basketball? Did you have family members that were like you that played the sport too?
They've all played mostly at the high school level.
Right, right. Tell me about the difference, because you play on a prominent club team. I think it's Fam Elite 30. Do I have that correct? So tell me the primary difference between a really good club team and New Mexico high school basketball.
So like I feel that New Mexico high school basketball is like everything that's on the book and like stats, I would say. But like club basketball, it's mostly like the little things. A big part of it is defense, and if you want to be able to get on that floor and play a lot of minutes, you have to be able to play defense and just hold your ground, play your position, and know your role.
Do you think of yourself as a basketball junkie, gym rat, that kind of person?
I would say so.
And I guess all great players have that in common, right?
Yeah. But I would say my sister's more of a junkie than me. Like, I need to have my breaks here and there, but she's always recommending, like, different moves or different players to me, so I give thanks to her.
Do you have hobbies outside of basketball where you can just be a kid and you're not thinking about school, you're not thinking about basketball, you're just clearing your head, doing whatever?
I would say just hanging out with my family, spending time with them, and then I have a dog, and so just he takes my mind off of it. And I would say I enjoy like writing. I get a lot of compliments for my handwriting, so I enjoy it.
Tell me a little bit more about that. What do you mean by that?
I get like when some of my classmates ask for my notes, they ask like whether I printed it or.
They're not supposed to be asking you for your notes, by the way.
Yeah, it's fine. I enjoy showing off my handwriting.
So, do you have any? Have you done any Christmas shopping?
Not as much as I would like. Just this past tournament, but now getting ready for Trisco this Friday. I think probably today and tomorrow probably my only time.
TikTok, Cindy. It's only 4 days away. You better get busy.
I know, that's crazy how time flies.
Are you just looking forward to being with your family for the holidays and just maybe not thinking about basketball and just kind of relaxing?
Yeah, definitely meeting back with my family up north, relaxing. I still want to get in the gym, so maybe.
So how do you find time to do that when you're off with your family outside of town? Do your family members have a gym nearby, or do they have a court in the yard? Or
well, just knowing you can bring a ball with you anywhere, you can work on your dribbling anywhere, you can get in any type of conditioning, especially like where my family's from, there's hills, and so just enjoying the environment.
So last thing before we wrap this up. So many teams will be quiet for these next couple of weeks. Like I said, some teams will have tournaments between Christmas and New Year's. Then we have the first week of the New Year. Then we get into the Metro tournament. So Hobbs is coming back up. So I think all the coaches, including your coach, believe that Hobbs is clearly the favorite. You know, they won state last year, and they're really young, a little bit like you guys. They don't have a lot of seniors. Most of their key players are juniors or younger. You played them last year. Can this team be beaten? I mean, I suppose in high school anybody can be beaten, but how does a team like Sandia, which looks like the second best team out there, go about trying to beat a team like Hobbs?
Hobbs, we know they're fundamentally sound. They're very disciplined. They have a great coach. Just knowing what we bring to the table, everyone wants to go out there and bring a win. And so we just got to continue perfecting our skills, knowing that we can't overlook anyone, but also we got to give them respect because they do have a state championship title.
Right.
And so I believe they can be beaten. It's going to take constant effort, all 40 minutes, and I know it could be done.
So last question. So a little earlier, we ran down the list of schools that have offered you a scholarship. In your mind, do you have a timeline when you'd like to sit down and make a decision? After this year, after your club season, next year, during your high school season as a senior, do you have an idea in your head about when you'd like to sit down and say, this is where I'm going?
Yeah, So taking in careful consideration with these schools, I'm probably looking at making like a final decision after my last club season, after summer.
Which runs through, is it roughly August or September?
It runs, yeah, through, ends probably the beginning of August.
Okay.
Yeah, so probably take some time to rest, take in careful consideration, and probably maybe before school season.
And a lot of kids always tell me they're always interested in getting that decision off their plate before they start their high school year, because people like me, for example, are always asking you, hey, how's it going? Have you made a decision? And I suppose that would take some of the weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay. Well, Sydney, we thank you very much for coming in to join us today. It was great to have you here. Sydney Benally, junior guard, point guard at Sandia. Sandia is ranked number 2 in the state behind Hobbs. I don't think Sandia has much going on until the new year. Am I right?
Yeah, not much until Metro.
Yeah. So the Metro tournament in Albuquerque begins second week of January. Sandia, La Cueva, Volcano Vista, Rio Rancho, who is better than I thought, and Hobbs, all those teams. I think Gallup is actually here too.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of good teams are going to be here for the Metro tournament. So you can come out and catch Sandia that week. So we thank Sydney Benally for joining us. Once again, my name is James Yodice, high school sports editor at the Journal. This has been our Fast Break podcast. We thank you very much for watching, and we'll talk to you later.
Education and training at Western New Mexico University is accessible from every corner of the land of enchantment, providing limitless opportunities towards success for more than a century. And now, through the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship, tuition and fees are covered for anyone looking to start or start over. Along with free tuition, books are always included for every WNMU student, assuring your only worry is how far you can actually go. Lift off toward your future and endless potential at WNMU today.
Okay, we thank Sydney Benally from Sandia for joining us today. And as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, we're going to try and have as many guests as possible here during the basketball season, talking about a variety of subjects, not just players, but coaches, officials, as we discuss various topics during the course of the year. So real quick, a couple of things. There will not be a podcast next week between Christmas and New Year's. I'll be out of the state for a few days. So we will return the first week in January, I believe on January 3rd. So no podcast next week. But before I get out of here today, I wanted to kind of go over some of the tournament activity that occurred over the weekend and some of the tournaments that are coming up next week between Christmas and New Year's. So last week, we had a few tournaments here going on in the metro area. The Joe Armijo Classic at Albuquerque Academy. Farmington's girls won the girls portion of the event. Oregon Mountain beat Albuquerque Academy's boys in the championship game there. A good look at Oregon Mountain, which is one of the best teams from outside the Albuquerque area. The Melo Terra tournament, which we talked about with Sydney, Sandia beat El Dorado, came from 9 points down at halftime, beat El Dorado 64-50 in the championship game. The West Mesa boys won the Hub City tournament. That was a victory over the Academy for Technology and the Classics, ATC, which was in the state championship game last March. They're out of Santa Fe. West Mesa beat ATC in the championship game there. And then there was the Phil Griego Invitational at Cleveland, a boys tournament, and we had the top 2 ranked boys teams in Class 5A. Number 1, Volcano Vista. Number 2, Cleveland. The game was tied at halftime. Great first half. Best first half I've seen so far this year. The game was tied at 32. At halftime, Volcano Vista turned up the defense in the second half, won the game 81-62. Kenyon Aguino, 33 points for Volcano Vista. Freshman David Lund III had 24 points. I can't even begin to describe how polished David is as a 9th grader. So that was a real statement game for Volcano, and they've already beaten a few really good teams on their schedule. And I mentioned that last because Volcano and Cleveland are both headed to the Hobbs Holiday Tournament, which runs next week in Hobbs, and they are on the same side of the bracket, unfortunately, so they could not meet in the championship game. They could meet in the semifinals, which I think are Friday at Hobbs at Ralph Tasker Arena. So we've got a lot of tournament activity going on between Christmas and New Year's. I'm not going to mention them all. I'll mention a couple of them. Primarily, the Albuquerque High boys and girls raised enough money to fly to Juneau, Alaska next week. They're going to be playing in something called the Princess Capital City Classic in Juneau. They're going to get 3 games in 4 days. A tremendous opportunity to see another part of the country. And I've mentioned this before, but Albuquerque Public Schools a couple of years ago opened the door to allowing any one of its teams during an individual season to take a trip out of state if they can find something. But the caveat is the teams have to raise the money themselves to travel. So the Albuquerque High boys and girls will be heading to Alaska. Good for them. I look forward to visiting with them when they get back. The Etrisco Heritage boys, who are off to a great start. I believe they're ranked number 3 in the state behind Volcano and Cleveland, and they're all part of the same district. Etrisco Heritage is headed down to the Las Cruces Holiday Hoopla event, which is running next week. The El Dorado boys are going to be in Roswell. The Rio Rancho boys are hosting a tournament next Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. A couple of interesting teams in the field. Santa Fe, that'll be my first look at Santa Fe. Santa Fe's off to a great start. Navajo Prep, which is the top-ranked team in Class 3A, will be here. Highland, which is the number 2-ranked team in Class 4A, will be here. In fact, Navajo Prep and Highland are playing each other in the first round, unfortunately. So there's some good teams. Hope Christian's in the field as well. That tournament will run Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we'll recap all of those tournaments, some of the highlights, when we get into 2024, the first week of the new year. So, so good luck to all of those teams that are traveling. And before I get out, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hope you have a great time with your families. As always, you can find my high school podcasts on our website, abqjournal.com. You can find them on YouTube as well. Same with Jeff Grammer, who does all our great Lobo podcasts. You can find his podcasts on those same platforms. So, and if you have any feedback for me, you can find me at my X address, which is at James D. Yodice. And my email address is on that site, jyodice@abqjournal.com. If you have any ideas, suggestions, feedbacks, go ahead and fire away. In the meantime, happy holidays. Have a great Christmas. And as always, we encourage you to read, hear, and watch.